Hello, my name's Steve. Now I'm going to show you how I've managed to tweak my EV charger so that it'll charge at a lower rate, or at least a cheaper rate, than it otherwise would do. Right, so when I first got my EV, I made use of the offer that was given by my dealer to buy a pod point charger. And this is the pod point charger that was installed. Now, I found the cable wasn't actually long enough to reach, so I got a different cable at more expense and put that on, so I now have a 10-metre cable on there. But that's not the charger I'm going to talk about. This is just a dumb charger. Plug it in, it charges your car, simple as that. You can't set any timers on it, you can't make use of cheap rate electricity, you can't do anything like that. You simply plug it in, it charges if your car needs it. However, I only used this charger for a short amount of time before I upgraded. Reason for that was that I got me some solar panels, and if I come all the way back here you can just about see them up on the roof of the house. There we go, 16 on the front and 2 around the side there. And to go with that, I decided to get a Zappi charger. So having got the Zappi charger, I read the manual and went through it all, and it was great, and discovered that you could set it to just take energy from the roof, which it currently is doing. We can see it taking 5.8, 5.9 kilowatts coming off the roof, 0.3 or 0.4 being used by the house, and the rest of it's going into my car. Now, Zappi chargers are lovely things, but they do have a slight drawback. Well, not really a drawback, it just hasn't got the features that I really want. What I like it to do is to charge preferentially from the grid when the grid price is lower than the price I get paid for exporting the solar energy that I generate off my roof. So because I'm with Octopus Outgoing, I've chosen the fixed rate of 5.5 pence per kilowatt hour. So what I'd really like the Zappi to do is to charge my car from the grid whenever the rate is less than 5.5 pence. And I've figured out a way of doing it using a smart plug, such as one of these. This is just a TP-Link HS100 smart plug. Not bothered about the make, model or anything like that. It's purely the first one that I found on the internet that seemed to do the trick. So I'll explain how I made that work with that. So having read the Zappi manual, I discovered something called eSense here on page 23, and eSense up here. Now this allows the Zappi to do a boost charge when certain conditions are met. These conditions are that a between 100 and a 260 volts AC voltage is applied to a set of terminals. Now these terminals are shown on page 31, I believe, yep, 31, down here in this little diagram. And you can see it just needs to be wired on to these little terminals here. So it just needs effectively a mains voltage applying across here. Doesn't actually draw a voltage or draw much current, so it's effectively it's just a signal. But the main input to the Zappi are these terminals here, so very close by. So all I need to do is to branch across from here to here with a suitable switch that activates when I want it to. Now the obvious thing, well at least I think it's obvious, was to use a smart plug and use that to connect across, because it's designed to handle mains electricity, and we are talking about mains here. So all I need to do, excuse my fingers getting in the way, is to connect into the main supply here to run the smart plug, and then the output from the smart plug will plug in to the eSense terminals. So that's what I went about doing. So here we have my test setup. Got the smart plug just connected up to a lamp, and using the Casa app on my smartphone I can turn it on and turn it off quite happily. You can also set up the if this then that protocols to actually turn it on and off when the Octopus Agile tariff hits the appropriate threshold. So that's what I've done. Initially I set my threshold to 0 because on the day I was messing around with this there was a price plunge in action. This means that the rate is actually less than zero, so they're effectively paying you to use electricity. So I wanted to play around with that. Now the price plunge was due to stop at 10 AM, so I took a picture before 10 o'clock, so while the price plunge was in action and I was getting free electricity, or actually being paid to use it, and then I took a picture just after, once the smart plug had caught up with the change in the tariff and switched itself off. So if you don't want to strip down your smart plug, you could use some sort of setup like this. Standard socket, normally wall mounted, but I've just put a flying lead on that I've labelled up mains. That could get plugged into or wired into the mains input on the Zappi. I can then stick the smart plug into that and then have a plug that's got another flying lead on the end, this time labelled eSense, and that would then just go into there, and then that bit would then be wired into the actual eSense connections inside the Zappi. The only problem with this is it's a bit thick and chunky, so there may not be enough room inside the Zappi to actually allocate this lot. That's the reason why I've decided to chop down my my smart plug so that I can make it a lot smaller. I can actually reduce the size of this down to it's only, well, actually slightly thinner than it actually is there by removing all the housing and putting it in a project box. So having stripped down the smart plug, I cleaned it all up, chopped off the heavyweight mains connectors and soldered on a set of flying leads. A pair on the rear, which is the mains input, and I labelled them mains, funnily enough, and then two on the output side, which I labelled up as eSense. I then put the whole lot into a little project box to make sure that none of the contacts on there, or none of the electronics, to come into contact with the electronics inside the Zappi, because I didn't want anything other than the connections I wanted to make being made, because that would be rather bad. So then it was time to move on to actually installing this into the Zappi. If you're ever going to work on electrical installations, always obey the warnings and make sure you isolate whatever you're working on. So I'm going to be working on my Zappi, which is the EV station. So shut it off and then put a padlock through to make sure that nobody can helpfully come in and turn it back on while you're touching the live end of it. Having taken the front off the Zappi, I was able to wire in the mains connection from my smart plug into the actual mains input that feed the Zappi. I then connected the other two leads, the output side, into the eSense connections, and then rearranged the project box so that it would fit into the space available. I then bolted the whole thing back together again. Right, so this is my Zappi charger plugged into my car, and as you can see I've got 3.4 kilowatts coming off the roof. 0.6 or 0.7 of those are being used by the house, and 2.7 kilowatts is going to my car currently. Now I've got the eSense smart plug installed inside the Zappi, and when the Octopus Agile rate drops below 5.5 pence per kilowatt hour, the eSense is activated and the Zappi does a boost charge. And I can demonstrate this even though the rate's not the right amount, because I've also rigged it up to my smart speaker, my Amazon Alexa. So hopefully it'll understand what I say. Echo, Zappi on. Okay. And now you can see that we've got the 3.4 kilowatts coming off the roof. The usual sort of 6 or 7 or 0.6 or 0.7 being used by the house, but now we've got 4.6 kilowatts coming in from the mains, and the full 7.2 kilowatts or 7.3 now go into the car as a boost charge. So echo, Zappi off. Okay. So now the eSense is turned off and you should see it revert back down so that it's just using solar. And there we go. So here we have the screen of my Zappi. Currently got 5.7 kilowatts of solar energy coming off the roof, 0.4 kilowatts being used by the house, nothing coming in from the grid, and the 5.3 kilowatts that are left going into my electric vehicle. Now at midday today, the Octopus Agile tariff is due to change or drop down to below the 5.5 pence threshold that I've set, and hopefully we'll see it click over on here. Now my tests before have shown there's about a minute or two's lag between the smart plug that's installed inside the Zappi now actually cutting in when it gets the information from the tariff, but we shall see when it actually cuts in. So bear with me and we'll see what happens. Talk amongst yourselves for a while. Oh, there we go, it's come in. Marvellous. Right, that's less than a minute, even better. Right, so still got the 5.7 kilowatts coming off the roof, 0.3 or 0.4, okay, 0.5 being used by the house, 2 kilowatts coming in from the grid now, and 7.3 or 7.4 kilowatts going into my EV. So this is actually saving me money because it's taking in energy from the grid at a lower rate than I get paid for the energy that comes off my roof. So it's a win-win for me.